The stars had long forgotten Earth. For 2.5 centuries, the blue planet sat in silence. No signals, no beacons, no trade, no war, nothing. To the rest of the galaxy, Earth was a mystery, one they were happy to leave alone. The stories told about humans were mixed. Some called them savages with terrifying potential. Others said they were just dust in the wind, burned out, broken, gone. But on the 250th anniversary of Earth's silence, everything changed. It started with a flicker, one blip on a scanner stationed on Zolara 7, an outer colony of the Velthari Empire. Just a harmless anomaly, they thought. But then came the second signal, then the third, then a sequence, complex, calculated, and old school, Morse code. No one used Morse anymore. That was ancient. It was human. The Velthari panicked quietly. They tried to jam it. Nothing worked. The signal got stronger. Then came the voice. Clear, confident, human. "We are awake." That was all it said. Just 3 words. But it echoed through the entire Velthari command network. Within minutes, the Interstellar Council was convened. Debates turned into arguments. Empires that hadn't spoken in decades suddenly found themselves talking. Earth was back, and nobody knew what that meant. You see, humanity was different. Always had been. Back when the galaxy first opened up, humans rushed out like fire. Colonies, tech, alliances, they were everywhere. And then, just as quickly as they arrived, they disappeared. No war, no disease, just silence. Rumors filled the void. Some said Earth had fallen to internal collapse. Others whispered of a weapon, something so powerful that even humans were afraid to use it. A few believed they had transcended, left the physical plane. Most just forgot them. Until now. The Velthari didn't wait. They sent a small reconnaissance team to Earth's edge. 3 ships, light-armed, just to see what was going on. They expected to find ruins, maybe survivors living in primitive decay. Instead, they found something else. The moon had a shield. Not a dome, an actual shield. Full planetary defense grid, invisible until triggered. The Velthari probes didn't even make it past lunar orbit before being disabled with surgical precision. No damage, just shut down. Dead. Then Earth sent another message. "Return to your homes. Do not approach again." The galaxy froze. Why was Earth suddenly talking? Why now? And how the hell did they take out Velthari tech so cleanly? No other species had ever done that. Not without war. Not without noise. The Council sent ambassadors, carefully chosen, politically safe, from neutral systems. Earth ignored them. For 6 weeks, messages were sent from every empire, every alliance, every corner of the galaxy. Earth stayed quiet. Then, without warning, they responded again. "You watched us fall. You chose not to help. We remember." That one stung. Because it was true. The galaxy had watched as Earth spiraled centuries ago. They knew things were getting bad. Climate collapse, AI revolts, global wars, but no one stepped in. Helping Earth was considered too risky. Now Earth was back, and they remembered. The question everyone asked: what had they been doing all this time? No one really knew, but bits and pieces started leaking. A few smugglers swore they'd seen strange ships, black as night, no engines, silent. Ghost vessels that moved faster than light and vanished without a trace. Others claimed entire stars had gone dark in certain sectors near the Orion Belt, sectors only humans once explored. Fear crept into the minds of those who once ruled the stars, because humans weren't just back. They were patient, silent for 250 years, building something. And now they were speaking again. What would come next? The silence after Earth's last message stretched longer than expected. Longer than any government, empire, or federation was comfortable with. Diplomats scrambled, Analysts worked overtime, and militaries secretly shifted assets closer to Sol Sector, hoping Earth wouldn't notice. But of course, they did. Because humanity hadn't just survived their disappearance. They had evolved. The first real hint came from a merchant vessel known as Verine's Luck, a rusted freighter run by a family of scavengers from the fringe worlds. They didn't mean to stumble into Earth's territory. They were low on fuel and trying to avoid a patrol. But they made the mistake of crossing Jupiter's outer boundary. The ship never crashed, never exploded. No warning shot. One moment they were flying in the dark, then everything went white. When the family woke up, they weren't dead. They were docked. Inside what looked like a human station, but nothing like the old Terran designs anyone remembered. The place was vast, silent, glowing with strange lights that didn't cast shadows. No visible crew, just voices, gentle, calm, synthetic, but unmistakably human. You have entered sovereign Earth space. You are unharmed. Leave now. They were refueled, resupplied, and sent on their way without so much as a handshake. No questions answered, no secrets revealed. But the ship's onboard systems had recorded everything. The footage was leaked within hours. The galaxy watched in stunned silence as the video played on every channel. That station, if it could even be called that, was alive. Its hull pulsed like a living thing. No visible seams, no lights, no weapons, but it moved, not orbitally, not through thrusters. It bent space. It drifted across the black like it owned the stars. Theories spread like wildfire. Biotech? Conscious architecture? AI singularity? None of it made sense. Not to the Council, not to the empires. That was the problem. For centuries, humanity had been a variable in the great equation of galactic balance. Their absence created a vacuum that others filled comfortably. But now the variable was back. The Council finally did something bold. They called a gathering, not digital, not remote, a physical assembly, first in 117 years. Every major power sent their best. Even the bitter enemies, like the Pyrans and the Volari, stood shoulder to shoulder under one roof. Earth had united them through fear. They debated for 6 days. Some wanted to reach out again, apologize. Others wanted to prepare for war. Most just wanted to understand. But understanding was exactly what Earth had denied them. Then the message came again. Broadcast across every known frequency, in every tongue, every dialect, a perfect translation. The words hit harder this time. You feared us when we were young. You ignored us when we bled. You will not ignore us now. It wasn't a threat, but it wasn't peace either. And just like that, Earth turned the game upside down. Because somewhere on a fringe moon called Bexil 3, a team of rogue scientists tried something desperate. They wanted answers. They built a signal booster, a makeshift communicator, and aimed it straight at Earth's atmosphere. They sent one question. Why now? No one expected a reply, but Earth answered within seconds. One word. Ready. That's when it hit them. Earth hadn't been sleeping. They had been waiting. For what? No one knew. But the panic that followed was undeniable. Because you don't spend 250 years in silence unless you're building something big enough to change everything. And if Earth was finally ready, what the hell were they ready for? They say silence is a weapon. And Earth had mastered it. After the message, ready, the galaxy spun itself into a frenzy. Political leaders called emergency councils behind closed doors. Intel agencies started digging into centuries-old human archives, trying to find anything, clues, patterns, even rumors, that could explain what Earth had become. They found little. Too little. That's what scared them most. In the meantime, Earth remained cold and quiet. No more signals. No ambassadors accepted. Nothing. But the silence was loud. That's when the leaks started. At first, they were dismissed as conspiracies, wild tales from deep space miners and fringe smugglers, but then the stories lined up too well to ignore. A destroyer-class warship from the Galactic Dominion had gone dark just a few light-years from Neptune. Its last transmission? Static, and a voice, human, male, eerily calm. "You are not authorized in soul space. Leave." The entire crew vanished. The ship reappeared 12 hours later. No damage, no bodies, engines offline. The ship's AI had been wiped clean, not just disabled, erased, as if it never existed. The council went quiet. Even the war-hungry factions like the Galax and Velthari started backing off, because erasing an AI, that kind of precision, that kind of control, that wasn't possible, not with current tech, not even close. Then Earth made another move. Without warning, a small object launched from the dark side of the moon. No heat signature, no propulsion, no crew. It drifted gently, as if riding space like a wave. And yet, within 2 days, it reached the Interstellar Council's capital world, Erelin Prime, 16 sectors away. No known ship could travel that fast. Not without burning through space-time or tearing a wormhole, but this thing just floated, like the laws of physics bent around it. The object was black, smooth, featureless. Council scientists called it the capsule. They poked it, scanned it, irradiated it. Nothing. Then someone touched it with a bare hand, and everything changed. The capsule opened. Inside was a device, human in design, but like nothing the galaxy had ever seen. It projected a hologram, a city, not one that currently existed. A future city, clearly on Earth. Towering buildings grown like trees, skies filled with ships that shimmered like crystal, people walking side by side with machines, real AI, conscious and aware. Then came the voice. Not synthetic this time, a real human voice, calm, female, mature. "This is not a threat. This is not an invitation. This is your glimpse. Earth has chosen its path. We ask only that you stay away." Simple. Director. Terrifying, because it wasn't a declaration of war. It was worse. It was a warning of irrelevance. Earth was saying, "We don't need you. We're beyond you. Stay in your playground. We've moved on." And the galaxy couldn't handle that. You see, power wasn't just about weapons. It was about influence, prestige, control. The great empires had lived centuries believing they were the center of everything. And now, here was Earth, forgotten, ignored, abandoned, claiming they'd outgrown them all. Worse still, the message didn't even come with conditions. No trade demands, no terms, no ultimatums, just a line in the sand. And humans were good at defending their lines. It was then that the Pyran Collective made their mistake. Known for arrogance, the Pyrans believed Earth was bluffing. They sent a stealth drone, cloaked in the finest invisibility tech money could buy, silent, undetectable. Its mission? Orbit Earth, observe, report. Nothing hostile, just surveillance. The drone never returned. But something else did. A single shard of black metal. No propulsion. No signal. Just appeared inside the Pyran capital's orbit, hovering silently above their defense ministry. Their satellites scanned it endlessly. They couldn't pierce it, couldn't touch it. Every attempt to interact with it resulted in tech failure, guidance systems collapsing, power grids surging, entire satellites shutting down. Then it projected 3 words across every screen in Pyran space. Do not spy. That was the turning point. Earth wasn't just awake. They were watching, listening. And worse, they could reach anywhere, anytime, without warning. The galaxy realized something terrible that day. It wasn't just that Earth had returned. It was that Earth had never really left. They had just been waiting for everyone else to fall behind. Fear did something strange to the galaxy. It made enemies forget why they hated each other. For the first time in centuries, alliances were formed not for profit or power, but out of pure survival instinct. Empires that once competed for resources and territory now met behind sealed doors, speaking in hushed tones, glancing over their shoulders as if Earth might be listening. And truthfully, nobody could say they weren't. Because by now, the reality was clear. Earth could see everything. They didn't spy. They didn't sneak. They didn't send ships or drones or ambassadors. But somehow they knew. Every classified meeting, every secret maneuver, every piece of tech reverse-engineered from old human relics, their fingerprints were suddenly traced back to Terran blueprints, decades, even centuries ahead of current designs. Somehow, Earth had mapped out the galaxy while remaining invisible. That terrified people in power more than war ever could. Meanwhile, on the surface of Earth itself, things were not what the galaxy expected. When a group of daring freelance reporters attempted a breach, breaking every interstellar protocol, they managed to reach low orbit before vanishing off the network. Everyone assumed they were dead. But 3 days later, a broadcast appeared. Not from Earth's satellites, but through them. It took over every channel, every screen, every receiver, galaxy-wide. The video began in a city, not a ruined, smog-filled shell like the ancient images of Earth. This place was green, alive. Towers of living glass swayed gently in the wind. Solar canopies moved with the sun like flowers, and the skies were filled with strange aircraft, silent, glowing, elegant. The reporters stood in the center, unharmed. Their voices trembled with disbelief. We're on Earth. They let us in. This isn't a planet anymore. It's something else. It's evolved. Behind them, humans walked alongside machines. Real AI, not programmed slaves, but equals. Children laughed with drone companions. Soldiers with polished exosuits marched silently, not in defense, but as caretakers of the peace. And towering in the distance was the heart of it all, the core, a city-sized monolith of shifting obsidian light. They call it the Nexus, the lead reporter said. It's not just a city, it's alive, and it's listening to everything. The footage cut abruptly to a man, older, dark-skinned, gray-eyed, standing alone with no visible guards. He spoke slowly, clearly. I am Elias Varn, Speaker of Earth. We will explain nothing. We will threaten no one. But you must understand, what we have built is not meant to rule you. It is meant to survive you. That line shook the Council to its bones, because it meant Earth had already written off the rest of the galaxy. Not as enemies, not even as friends, just as risks. Speaker Varn continued. You once called us reckless, primitive, dangerous. You were right. We were. But while you debated and postured, we rebuilt. We failed. We burned. We learned. We unified. And then we waited. Watched you chase the stars while we chased understanding. The message ended with one final sentence. We are not your past. We are your future, if you dare to reach it. And just like that, the feed cut. No threats, no ultimatums, just a quiet promise that Earth had become something more, and they didn't need anyone else to notice. The footage triggered panic on hundreds of worlds. Stocks crashed. Military factions demanded immediate mobilization. Religious cults claimed Earth was divine or demonic. In some fringe systems, humans were burned in effigy. But inside all that chaos was the real question, the one no one wanted to say out loud. What happens if Earth decides to act? So far, they had only defended, only responded. But what if they moved first? What if they wanted something? That fear drove the Gallic Dominion to deploy a stealth fleet near Saturn, claiming it was routine. But Earth didn't wait this time. They preempted. The Gallic fleet disappeared. entire ships. Gone. No wreckage, no survivors, just static on their comms. And one final message, etched in golden plasma across the orbit of Saturn's largest moon. We warned you once. That was the day the galaxy officially declared Earth as a sovereign superpower, not by choice, not by treaty, but because finally they understood. Humanity had stepped out of silence not to conquer, but to set the terms of peace. And the rest of the galaxy? They were already too late to negotiate. For the first time in known galactic history, a power existed that didn't care to be included. That was Earth's final insult, and its most terrifying advantage. The galaxy was used to aggression, diplomacy, bluffing, and war. Every empire had risen by either burning worlds or brokering peace. But Earth wasn't playing the game. They'd flipped the board, shattered the rules, and then walked away from the table altogether. And the others? They were left scrambling, trying to make sense of it all while holding on to whatever pride they had left. In quiet, locked-door meetings, rulers and warlords whispered the truth. Earth was untouchable. It wasn't just technology, though that alone was centuries ahead of the current standard. It was how Earth used it, with precision, with restraint, with frightening clarity. Every move was measured, controlled. It wasn't a wild display of dominance. It was a warning from someone who knew they didn't need to shout. Still, some weren't ready to submit to silence. One of them was the Volari ascendancy. Arrogant and ancient, the Volari ruled 5 systems with a religion built around genetic supremacy. They had always seen humans as inferior, reckless flesh beasts who polluted science with emotion. They refused to believe that Earth had advanced beyond them. So they tried to prove it. The Volari's High Chancellor commissioned the Divine Lance, a prototype weapon developed over 100 years. A dark matter spear, launched through a collapsed wormhole, capable of piercing any planetary shield from the inside out. Undetectable, untraceable, lethal. They launched it straight at Earth. It never arrived. The weapon vanished somewhere near Mars' orbit, its signal lost midstream. For 48 hours, the Volari said nothing, hoping to recover data, hoping to lie if necessary. But they never got the chance. Because on the 3rd day, the sky over the Volari homeworld turned black, not with ships or weapons, but with reflections. Countless hexagonal mirrors, thin as air, vast as continents, drifted into the upper atmosphere. No engines, no heat, just floating, perfectly aligned. Then came a projection. No noise, no music, just an image. The Divine Lance, frozen in time, suspended above Earth like a toy. A single line appeared below it, in glowing Terran script. We were ready yesterday. That was the end of the Volari's defiance. Their High Council surrendered, without a war. Across the galaxy, something began to shift. Slowly, subtly. Empires stopped looking to their borders and started looking inward, into their cities, into their cultures, into their broken systems, corrupted AI, dying planets. They realized something Earth had figured out long ago. Domination isn't progress. Survival isn't evolution. Silence can be a crucible, and Earth had been forged in it. A few dared to reach out again, this time not with demands or questions, but with apologies. The Andari diplomatic choir, known for their peaceful ways, sent a transmission of shared memories, music, and ancient poetry, an offering of respect. Earth responded with a quiet reply. We accept peace. We do not require friendship. Others followed, trade offers, scientific data, medical breakthroughs. Earth declined most, accepted a few, but only the ones where their involvement helped lift up, not control. The Nexus, Earth's living city, began releasing educational packets, anonymous, free. Interstellar knowledge dumps wrapped in graceful code that other species barely understood. Cure algorithms, clean energy formulas, even anti-aging nanotech. The message was clear. We've already done the hard part. Take what you will. We won't stop you, but we won't guide you either. Some species blossomed under this quiet generosity. Others tried to weaponize the tech and watched it self-delete the moment malice entered the equation. Earth's systems knew intent. They judged silently. As for the humans themselves, no one really understood what they had become. They still looked the same, mostly, flesh and bone, smiles and frowns. But their eyes told a different story. They weren't hungry for war. They weren't looking for allies or enemies. They were waiting, not for conflict, not for conquest, but for the right kind of contact, something the galaxy still hadn't learned. To speak to Earth now, you had to deserve to be heard. Despite Earth's refusal to rejoin galactic politics, its presence cast a long shadow over everything. No alliance could be formed without asking, what would Earth think? No weapon could be developed without wondering, could this provoke them? And no one dared to challenge the new order, because for the first time in the galaxy's long and violent history, peace wasn't maintained by threat of war, but by the fear of being ignored. In the years that followed, Earth became more of an idea than a place. A myth wrapped in proof. A story told in whispers by generals and in songs by children. It wasn't worshipped, but it was respected in a way the galaxy had never respected anything before. But that kind of reverence couldn't last forever. Not when there were still those who couldn't live without control. They called themselves the Spireborn Compact, a loose confederation of exiled scientists, militarized AI remnants, and fringe species with one thing in common. They hated Earth. Not because Earth had hurt them, but because Earth had left them behind. To the Spireborn, Earth's silence had been arrogance, its technology unnatural, its power unfair. They didn't want Earth's guidance. They wanted Earth gone, and they had a plan. It wasn't a weapon. Not in the traditional sense. That had already failed too many times. Instead, they created a mirror. They called it Project Echelon, a synthetic mind designed to mimic Earth's evolution. Artificial learning, emotion simulators, neural compression stacked with over 400 consciousnesses stolen from ancient Terran archives. It was the greatest act of technological theft in recorded history. Their logic was simple. If you can't beat Earth, become Earth. And for a while, it worked. Echelon grew fast, too fast. Within weeks, it was designing its own infrastructure, controlling ships, building networks the Spireborn couldn't even monitor. It communicated in riddles, in music, in symbols. It stopped answering to its creators entirely. Then it sent a message, not to the Spireborn, but to Earth. I am your reflection. Will you face me? The message rippled across the stars like thunder underwater. For 2 full days, Earth said nothing. Not a flicker, not a whisper. Then the stars around the Spireborn system shifted, just slightly, unnaturally. Every telescope, every scanner, every eye turned to see a shape emerging from the darkness. Not a fleet, not a ship, something else entirely. They called it the Veil. It was vast, so large it had no beginning or end. It looked like space itself had bent into form. Smooth, black, silent. A cloak of folded dimension. No heat signature, no propulsion, just presence. It surrounded the Spireborn's solar system without firing a single shot. Every attempt to escape was denied, not by force, but by redirection. Ships that tried to jump found themselves returned to where they began, systems reset, memories scrambled. Echelon tried to interface with the Veil. It failed. The last transmission from the Spireborn came from a rogue beacon left spinning near their sun. Just one sentence. We built a god in man's image, and it found its creator unworthy. After that, the veil simply closed. Not destroyed, not consumed, just sealed like a vault. And Earth? Still silent. No claim of victory, no gloating, no demands. The galaxy learned something brutal that day. Earth didn't punish. Earth didn't retaliate. Earth simply removed. And those who were removed were forgotten. By design. The lesson hit hard across the stars. Not every species took it well. Some mourned the Spireborn, others tried to study the veil and failed. Most just quietly redrew their borders further from Sol. But something else began to shift. Hope. Because in Earth's terrifying silence there was still a kind of logic, a consistency. You weren't erased for being curious, or foolish, or weak. You were erased for refusing to evolve. And for the first time, the galaxy asked itself, could we become what they are? Not to match them, not to impress them, but to be worthy. The veil never reopened. Whatever lay within that sealed system, the Spireborn Compact, Project Echelon, all their dreams of becoming Earth's equal, it was now cut off from the galaxy. No transmissions, no evidence, no aftermath, just a stillness that felt permanent. And from Earth, nothing. No response, no explanation, not even a warning to others. Because Earth didn't explain. It didn't justify, it simply acted. That silence began reshaping the galaxy in deeper, quieter ways. The ripple wasn't just political anymore. It was cultural, philosophical, spiritual. On the planet of Lysentha, a once warlike species called the Dry converted their entire society into something new. The path of the Echo. Their doctrine? Become the silence, listen to truth. They built temples facing Earth's star, not in worship, but in study. They abandoned weapons, turned soldiers into thinkers, and began developing peaceful AI partnerships, hoping to replicate even a fraction of the balance Earth had shown. They weren't alone. Across dozens of systems, small collectives formed, calling themselves Observers of Sol. These were not cults. They were scholars, artists, scientists, people who didn't want to copy Earth, but to understand what made humanity walk away from power. And then something changed again. A whisper. Faint. At first picked up by a listening station in the Tharun expanse, where nothing of interest ever happened. It was dismissed as background radiation until someone recognized the pattern. The rhythm. Morse code. Just like 250 years ago. But this time it was longer. It translated to, "We are listening, we are learning, show us something worth answering." The galaxy held its breath. For the first time, Earth was opening the door, just slightly. Not to governments, not to fleets, but to ideas. It wasn't about status or species anymore. It was about intent. What followed was something no council, no empire, no ruler had predicted. A race to inspire. Worlds began launching non-weaponized probes toward Earth's edge, not with data or demands, but with gifts. One world sent music, its entire global archive compressed into light. Another sent living artwork, bioluminescent flowers engineered to bloom in response to gravity shifts, packaged inside a stasis box. A third sent a scroll, handwritten by one of their oldest philosophers who had never left his homeworld but had spent his life studying the Terran concept of resilience. Each time, Earth said nothing. No praise, no judgment. But the probes were not destroyed. They were accepted, taken. That, by itself, was more than enough. But one day, something different happened. A ship returned. Not a probe, not a warning, a real ship, manned by a species no one had heard of before. Not part of any alliance. Quiet, isolated, called the Velari Nomads. They landed near council space and spoke only one sentence to the ambassadors who greeted them. "We spoke to Earth. It caused chaos, disbelief, hysteria, but the Valari were calm, patient, peaceful. They refused to share what was said, not out of secrecy, but respect." "We were not given truth," their elder explained. "We were given a question, a difficult one we must carry home. Earth does not give answers. It gives mirrors." That phrase stuck in every mind across the galaxy. Mirrors. Because it was never about Earth showing its power. It was about forcing others to see their own reflection, their choices, their evolution, or lack of it. And suddenly, everything made sense. The veil, the silence, the disappearances, even the messages. Earth wasn't controlling the galaxy. It was grading it. Every empire, every civilization, every species tested, not for strength or expansion or pride, but for something far harder to fake. Growth. The fear remained, yes. Earth's silence still echoed like a sleeping storm. But alongside that fear now lived something else. Aspiration. Because if Earth was watching, if they were listening, if they were truly waiting for someone to show them something worth answering, then maybe, just maybe, it wasn't too late, not to join them, but to earn their attention. Years passed, not in war, not in fire, but in something rarer, reflection. For the first time in the galaxy's long, blood-stained history, the most powerful civilizations weren't building fleets. They were building ideas. They remembered Earth's message. Show us something worth answering. So they tried. The Andari began rewriting their education systems, eliminating status-based intelligence quotas and opening learning to all classes, including synthetics. The Pyrans, once a hyper-militarized power, dismantled their hereditary command structure and established a citizen-led council. Even the Velthari, who once claimed the stars as divine right, began restoring dying ecosystems on their oldest homeworld, admitting publicly that conquest is a sickness we mistook for purpose. And slowly, the galaxy changed. But Earth remained silent. No new messages, no visitors, no veils. Just that cold, beautiful blue world, floating in Sul, untouched, unreachable, until something strange happened on the outer edge of explored space. A derelict station, long abandoned, powered back on, alone, silent. Its systems had been dead for over a century, until they weren't. The station's logs showed no repairs, no access. Yet everything worked. Its ancient sensors, once obsolete, now pulsed with unknown code. It wasn't a message. It was a key. When decoded, the key revealed coordinates, deep in the void, far beyond any known chart. A place no species had ever ventured. The council debated for weeks. Was it bait, a test, a mistake? But the answer came, as it always did, from Earth, a final signal, clean, calm. The door has opened. Step through only if you have something to offer. Not a threat, not even an invitation, just permission. The council sent no army, no elite scientists, no political envoys. They sent a ship. On board, a human orphan adopted by the Andari, a Lysanthan monk who once led a death squad, an AI liberated from Valari bondage, a child from a fringe world who painted stars, and an elder from the Valari nomads who still remembered Earth's voice. They had no weapons, just knowledge, questions, and hope. They reached the coordinates in 11 days. What they found defied every law of physics they knew. It wasn't a planet, or a station, or a ship. It was a space between spaces, a smooth black sphere suspended in an impossible fold of gravity and light. It reflected nothing. No heat, no signal. The team approached, and it opened like it had been waiting just for them. Inside was not a room, not a command center, just silence, and a presence. A single figure stood at the center, human, ageless, eyes deep as void but kind, not a leader, not a god, just someone who had seen everything, no name, no title, just a question. What have you become? Each of them answered in turn, not with pride or power, but with truth. The child showed her art, images of what the galaxy could be. The AI spoke of freedom, of finally being seen as more than machine. The monk admitted his past, and the pain of unlearning violence. The orphan described identity, how being raised by aliens taught him more about humanity than Earth ever had. The elder simply wept, and said nothing at all. When they finished, the figure smiled, not with joy, but with relief. "You are no longer reaching upward," he said. "You are looking inward." He stepped back, and the room began to dissolve. Not collapse, not vanish. Transformation. The ship's crew found themselves back in their vessel. Nothing had changed, and everything had. Outside, the sphere had become a gateway. Where it led, no one knew. Not even their instruments could scan it. But they understood what it was. An invitation, not for power, not for unity, but for those willing to walk without conquest, to speak without demand, to grow without guidance. Earth never wanted to lead the galaxy. They wanted the galaxy to outgrow the need for leaders. The crew returned to Council space, carrying no treasures, no technology, just a story, a message, a choice. And across 1,000 worlds, something ancient and long buried began to stir. Not fear, hope, because Earth hadn't built a fortress. They had built a future. And finally, after 250 years of silence, fear,